entrepreneurs, we think a little bit differently. And this isn't every church out there, but I just felt my struggle was like, where do I fit in within the local church? Like, should I, direct traffic? I'm sure I can stack chairs. I can usher. I can do all those things, right?
Do you feel crazy if someone tells you that? Because I'm like, I can't do that. That's not, I can do a lot of things, so I definitely can't do that. No offense to the chair stackers. I love you. So I love that you're having this conversation. He's just keeping it real.
Yes. And that's where, again, just as entrepreneurs, we think usually it's like we see a problem and we're immediately trying to figure out the solution, right? My wife hates that about me at times, right?
Sit down, Rylee.
But that was just how I felt. And so I felt a little like struggling with where I fit in within the local church. And so through that process, and ultimately with Christian Edwards, who is my partner here within the King's Council, he helps kind of lead the pastoral care of everybody within the community. We felt like we needed to convert this to a true nonprofit and come alongside the local church to resource them up with small group curriculum. We host weekend workshops. We call them Become the CEO of Your Life, because Jesus owns it, like he's chairman of the board, but we are operating CEOs. So how do we operate in excellence mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially? And how do we do that with community, right? And so through our small group curriculum and, coming in, kind of call it tip of the spear with the weekend workshop, it helps to just find those leaders that want to continue to run this race and continue to lead a small group, and ultimately resource up that individual to resource up the rest of the members within their local congregation. And so we've done this, again, partnering with a number of churches all throughout the country. We were just in West Virginia last month. We hosted one of these with an incredible church there. We had about 250 people that attended this weekend workshop, and just to hear the ripple effect that takes place out of these type of events is what's, I think, so impactful, because we know, again, it's not like this national movement, yes, but it starts kind of at the grassroots, like in the local church, in the community, that can ultimately have impact and lead to true change, bringing people back to Jesus, number one, right? And yes, if we're blessed with a business and a skill set, now it's our job to steward that appropriately, but not at the sake of taking any attention or focus off of our Creator.
Yeah, that. And I think a lot of times, and this is silly, but entrepreneurs can understand the power of collaboration sometimes better than the pastors who are maybe like 1 to 3 miles away from each other, as we found. And this is like a really amazing opportunity for them to break down that denominational divide and understand that if they were to come together and equip their entrepreneurs, and those entrepreneurs were working together, talk about true visionary, talk about that wave. Another thing to talk about is the personal revival inside of a church congregation because of something that's happening in the entrepreneurs of your community. I mean, holy cow. We don't stop once we start. That's the cool thing about an entrepreneur, right? It's not like a one and done kind of thing. We're like, okay, there's 1. So we need to multiply to 10. And now there's 100. And now there's 1,000. And it's that's how our minds work organically, which is why thankfully my spouse is also an entrepreneur, but he's also don't volunteer for that, because I know you're going to take over the whole thing and they're going to need you and then you're going to have to leave them. So I get it. But I think that this is such a need for the church. And it really parallels to our nonprofit with the Founder Collective. Right now, we're doing weekly discipleship calls with entrepreneurs across the country, me and the co-pastor, Anthony Hart. And the intention behind that is so that people can come as entrepreneurs. It is so isolating sometimes to be inside of not just church congregations, but even sometimes your own teams, who they're relying on you to constantly be that one who has the right thing to say or the right energy to bring to the table. And we have that abundantly through Christ, but we also need to have conversations with other people who are visionaries, who are running at the same speed. And it's not because we're trying to outrun the world. God has called us to do such a thing, and he's energized us to do such a thing. And so these have been real conversations where people come sometimes weary, sometimes in need of a new word, sometimes just in need of prayer, sometimes just as a place to rest and be seen. And so for us us to be able to establish that through the King's Council in our local church, I mean, how you would say, like, to the listener, hey, if you have a body or a congregation or you're an entrepreneur that potentially wants to lead one of these groups, is that how people are getting established? Is that how the King's Council is getting those invitations?